One question that has captured all our mind space for a few months now is when will we have a COVID-19 vaccine? The Health Minister in India has said that we will have a vaccine by the end of 2020. But recently, when asked again in the Parliament, he revised his position and said the first quarter of 2021 is when India should realistically be looking at a vaccine. So on FYI today, we tell you everything that you need to know about a vaccine. How is it developed? Which drug companies are in the race? How soon can we have it? What will it cost? And most importantly, how safe is it going to be? I'm Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor. Let's get started with today's show. Let's start by telling you about vaccines first a little bit. Now, vaccines typically require years of research and testing before reaching the clinical or the clinics or your basic place that you go to get vaccines from. But scientists across the world are racing to produce a safe and effective coronavirus vaccine by next year. Work began in January with the deciphering of the gene code for COVID-19 virus. The first vaccine safety trials on humans started in March, but the road remains uncertain. Some trials will fail, others may end up without a clear result, but few may succeed in stimulating the immune system to produce effective antibodies against the virus. At the moment, over 100 companies across the globe are working on the vaccine. But before I tell you more about who's in the race, who's not, and thus how soon can we have it, let's first familiarize ourselves a little with the process of vaccine development. Now, what exactly is the journey that a vaccine takes from a lab to a clinic? First up comes the preclinical testing. That means the scientists test a new vaccine on cells and then give it to animals such as mice or monkeys to see if it actually produces any immune response. Then comes phase 1 or safety trials. Scientists give the vaccine to a small number of people to test safety and dosage as well as confirm that it stimulates an immune system. Once that has given positive results, they move on to phase 2. That is an expanded trial. Scientists give the vaccine to hundreds of people split into groups such as children, elderly, to see if the vaccine acts differently in any of them. These vaccine trials are further tested for safety and ability to stimulate, again, the immune system, which is the primary focus and the need for the vaccine. Then comes phase 3, which is called the efficacy trial. Now, scientists give this vaccine to thousands of people and wait to see how many become infected compared to with volunteers who've been receiving the placebo all this while. Now, these trials can determine if the vaccine protects against the coronavirus. Also, if the need to be a large enough audience actually reveals evidence relatively or also throws out relatively rare side effects that might be missed in earlier studies. Now, once through all these 3 stages comes the approval. The drug regulators in each country review and trial the results and decide whether to approve the vaccine or not. Now, during a pandemic, a vaccine may receive emergency use authorization as well before getting formal approval. Once a vaccine is licensed, research still continues to monitor people who receive it to make sure it's safe and effective. Now that you know about the method and you understand what stages or the journey of the vaccine, how it looks like, let's tell you which companies are now leading the race. Right now, like I said, there are about 100 different vaccine candidates in different stages of development. We've got a vaccine tracker on the screen for you. In the preclinical stage, there are about 170 plus vaccines. In phase 1, about 10. In phase 2, about 17. In phase 3, about 7 vaccines, and none have got approval so far. So you can actually see 7 vaccines in stage 3, which have closest potential in the near future to actually come out with some results. The FYI team now has dug out the top 3 front runners for you. Let's bring that out now. At number 1 is Moderna. It is an American-based company which has the most promising start so far by working on a new technique which is called a messenger RNA. They have already started to deliver its vaccine to the national health officials in USA, for example. Moderna has set up a record in the drug industry with the speed at which they have developed this vaccine. Number 2 is Pfizer and its German partner BioNTech. Now, they produce antibodies, remember, against the SARS-CoV-2 as well as immune cells called T cells is the way they are working on that respond to the virus. We'll know about what happens to them in about October this year. Next is AstraZeneca. Now, they've been studying on monkeys and found that the vaccine provided them protection. No severe side effects have been found in phase 1 and 2. It did raise antibodies. Phase 2 and 3 trials began in England, India also, for example, in Brazil, South Africa and in USA. But remember, on this one, on September 6th, global trials were halted to investigate one volunteer who developed a tricky form of inflammation. It's called a transverse myelitis, that is an inflammation of the spinal cord, a major part of the central nervous system. Now, British and Brazilian trials resumed in September. On September 12th, India is still thinking about it. But there is another vaccine that is in the advanced stage, but slightly controversial so far. We're talking about the much talked about Russian vaccine. Now, on 11th of August, Putin announced that the Russian healthcare regulator had approved the vaccine before even it went on to the several phases. Russia later even walked back on this and saying that the approval was conditional only for phase 3 results. Now, sample size of this phase 1, phase 2 was quite small, only about 40 volunteers, imagine that, and received the full vaccine. No one received a placebo. Now, research also not yet has shown anything whether people who receive the vaccines are less likely to become infected or what happens to them next. Phase 3 trials are now on in this, where they have expanded finally this entire trial from 2,000 to about 40,000 volunteers. But if you're now thinking, how long will it take? Why is it taking so long to actually develop a vaccine when the best of the minds in the world are working on it? Let's take a look at how long does it take to actually develop, and how long did it take to develop other notable vaccines, for example. Look at that graph on your screen. Polio, for example, took 7 years. Measles took 9 years. Chickenpox took 34 years. Mumps took 4 years. And HPV took 15 years to develop a vaccine. So compared to that, this is going on a really good pace. The average there, if you see, of a vaccine development is about 10.7 years. When it comes to coronavirus, the pressure to prepare the vaccine has come in every day as the number of cases rise, death rates also climb up, and they're going higher as we speak. But there is real risk, remember, to pushing too hard and too fast. Some drug companies plan to now push testing schedules into human trials rather than spending months testing them on animals first and in labs. That could lead to what is called an immune enhancement, where a person or an animal could receive the vaccine, and who have received a vaccine, in fact, ends up with a more serious disease than those unvaccinated. At the moment, at least, China and Russia are examples of two countries which have approved vaccines without waiting for results in phase 3. And experts say that the rushed approach has some serious risks. The question before the health officials then is escalating these schedules worth the kind of risks that are taking?